back on that period then and say, well, that was a severe mistake. Why has China lifted more people out of poverty than any other country in human history? Because it opened up. Without Deng Xiaoping and the opening up policy, we would never have had that. So there's no doubt about it that it works. Now, that's not to say there aren't trade issues that don't have to go on the table, and trade negotiations are complicated, often for very good reasons. The spat between America and China today has leave aside all its consequences, but you can't say there's not a real issue that doesn't have to be tackled there. But in the end, it's important that we support the idea of multilateral trade negotiations, because they will in the end produce greater prosperity for the world.
China has gotten a lot more attention here in the last several years. Could you just talk about how should a U.S. senator said to me a couple months ago, he said, I don't know what winning with China looks like. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to frame it. It's a little simplistic, but it's fairly complicated at the same time. How should we think about having a constructive but honest relationship with China? What should we be thinking about on the one hand, and how should we think it's become a major force in global development? I don't know, there's maybe 80 countries now. It's the largest trading partner is China. They have the Belt and Road. They've set up the AIIB. They're a major force in the world. How should we think about them?
We should think about them as a major force in the world and realize that it's absolutely inevitable that they are, and right that they are, by the way. The one thing we've got to be really careful of is not accepting the fact that the most populous country in the world, and now with the largest economy or the second largest economy, depending on how you look at it, they're going to be a major force. There's no doubt about that. And one of the reasons why I'm so much in favor both of Europe staying together and of Europe and America staying together is when you get to the middle of this century, if you just think about it. I've got 2 small grandchildren now, and I think by the time they're the age of my kids, what's the world going to look like, when they're in their late 20s, early 30s? And essentially, if you take a step back and you look at the big picture in the world, there's going to be 3 giants. There's going to be America, China, and probably India. Right? And then number 4, which is a tall-sized country, is going to be still way, way, way behind those giants. So those will be countries like Indonesia and Brazil and Japan and Mexico and so on. Okay. Those are countries with populations 100, 200 million and so on. And then you're going to have the medium-sized countries. They're going to be France, Italy, Germany, Britain. Right? And one of the things I will say to people back home is, it's just a reality. In a land of giants, you've got to come together. Otherwise, they're going to sit on you individually. Right? That's what giants do. And even though I'm a passionate believer in the relationship with America and so on, Britain and America, okay, do have a great relationship. It's important we keep a great relationship. But America's a giant. Britain's not a giant. But within Europe, you can sit at the table of giants, right? So this is why how we then handle China is going to be probably the single biggest geopolitical challenge of the 21st century. And we've got to understand that China's got a different value system from us, and it's a different type of government. And that's, again, not necessarily a criticism, it's just a statement of fact. So the important thing is, in my view, we've got to deal with China from a position of strength, not from a position of enmity, because insofar as we can engage them and partner with them, we should. But we've always got to be strong, because they are a giant. And if they see weakness, they'll take advantage of it, because that's what giants do. So this is what is important, I think. Now, when you come to Africa and the work we do in Africa, I think China's just a massive, if I can use a somewhat vulgar British phrase, it's a massive kick up the backside for the West. Because I tell you what African presidents say to me the whole time. They say, we're trying to get infrastructure into our country because it's a vital necessity. Right? We engage with the West, and we engage with them. And then 3 years later, we're still engaging with them. And we're locked in this bureaucratic discussion, that bureaucratic discussion. We have the conversation with China, and we say we need a road from A to B, and the next day someone's there with a shovel. That's the difference. So I think, there's many faults, by the way, in the way the Chinese can often go into a country, but you've got to understand from the receiving party, the great advantage is speed of decision and execution. And we've got to get far, far smarter and sharper about this in the West. And, we've got to, I'm afraid, be less in the box-ticking mode and more in the how can we make things happen mode. And for me, because I think the African countries in time, by the way, will come, and I can see this developing already, they'll come to a more nuanced picture of China. They don't want to be... They don't want to be
a full-on,
exactly.
vassal state of the Chinese.
I always say to them, you've got options, that's a great thing, but just make sure you keep options. And it's up to us also to be there alongside them.
We have to up our game. We have to up our game. I liked your expression. I've used more think tanky terms like salutary wake-up call, but I actually think it's I'm going to use your term more. That's better. It's a real wake-up call for the West.
I'm giving you varying degrees of vulgarity.
I love varying degrees of vulgarity. I want to learn all of them. That sounds great for Brit. I want to learn all those British bad words. That's great. But Mr. Blair, I think one of the things I say is that if we don't meet the hopes and aspirations of countries, they will take their business to the Chinese. And I worry that we're sometimes offering chicken or beef development because that's what our politics in the United States, United Kingdom find easy to deliver. And they want ice cream sundaes, or they want Rocky Road, or they want they want mac and cheese, and we're saying we got chicken or beef.
Yeah, I'm
confused
about that. I mean,
no, I'm just saying you're not following that.
Picture. No, but here's the thing, Dan. I think is really, really important.
What I mean is what I'm saying is we're saying we'll say, okay, we've got a lot of health money for your country, and they say, I'd really like an airport or a road, please. And they say, well, we've got a lot of health money for your country, and I'd really like a road, please. And they'd say, well, we've got a lot of health money for your country. It's like, are you not listening to me? And that's what I'm trying to say.
That's absolutely correct. But here's two things that we can offer, which are very important. But we need to sort of make sure that we are offering them. First of all, we do actually focus on the question of governance in the West, but I don't think we focus on it enough. I mean, I always say to people, the great difference, if you look around the world today, this is why my institute focuses on how you make governance more, not just more honest, by the way, because honesty is one issue, but effective. How do you actually deliver for your people? Because if you look around the world today, what is the big difference between the countries that succeed and fail? Yeah. It's the quality of governance. You can take two countries side by side with each other, same population, same resource potential, roughly the same opportunities and challenges. One succeeds, one fails. What's the difference? You take Colombia and Venezuela.
Yeah. Okay. It's governance.
Or you take Poland and Ukraine. Or you take Rwanda and Burundi. Or actually the greatest experiment in humankind's governance capability, the Korean Peninsula, North and South Korea. Right.
Or Taiwan even. I don't know.
Yeah, you can go right across the piece and you can see the countries that succeed are the ones that develop the capacity to govern, institutions to govern. Now, we in the West, we can play a part in that. Rule of law, for example. When I have my presidents, the presidents I've worked with say to me, how do we attract investment into the country? I say, okay, there's lots of different things you can do, but I tell you one thing you've got to do. They've got to know there are predictable rules that are going to be properly applied, and they're not going to be switched or changed at the whim of some bureaucrat or politician. Right? It's not complicated, and we can help you do that if you're willing to do it. So this is, we can go in and we can help them build capacity. I think there is actually, this is, an agenda I know is close to the hearts of OPIC now and Mark Green at USAID. I think we can help with getting investable projects on infrastructure. There is the capacity within the West to help those countries put that together. And yes, the Chinese do work very fast on infrastructure, but sometimes, in their speed, let's say certain things get left out of the equation. We could actually move into that space if we organized ourselves in the right way. And this is what is so important.
So, Mr. Blair, I see you as not just a senior statesman in the United Kingdom, but in the West. And it's, I really wish you were back in politics in your country. And I think, I'd read